morning, students. Yesterday we did theory of index numbers. Today we'll do the construction or measurement of index numbers. Now for recap, it is called a relative measure. So in relative measure, it is a percentage. The indicators of price change over a period of time or from place to place are studied in index numbers. So there are 4 broad categories under which we'll do the construction of index numbers. First is unweighted or simple index numbers. In second, these are weighted methods. Then comes consumer price index, and then comes wholesale price index or industrial index numbers. The basic part you must understand for recap as we are discussing now. Now there is price of the original or the base year. The base year is some year in the past, a year of reference with which the comparison is made of the current year prices. So as you know, tree has a base. The base of a tree is its roots. So roots are under the ground, and so the price of a base year is always taken as a denominator, and the other part of the tree is visible up the ground. So this is P1. This is simply to make you remember that P1 in all these methods will be numerator and P0 will be the denominator. This is the basic method and it is multiplied by 100 because it is a relative method. Percentage, relative means percentage. It is opposite of absolute. In absolute methods, we mention the measure, kilograms, meters, grams, liters. But in relative measure, these measures are not mentioned because it is in a percentage form. So you just have to remember this basic thing, and now we can proceed. And if you have any problem in calculations, you can always ask me later on. But if we do it in a comparative manner, then it is easier for you to understand all the methods. If I take it in a piecemeal, one method today, the other the next day, the other day, then you may confuse all these methods. For your better understanding, so I will be doing these today simultaneously so that you have no confusion in mind regarding the construction of index numbers. Now in simple, to begin with, simple index number, there are 2 methods. Simple aggregative method. इसको कहते हैं सरल सामूहिक विधि. क्या कहेंगे? सरल सामूहिक विधि method. तो in this method, if there are, so I am using this part for this method for making you understand. So I won't solve the question as such, but I'll just be mentioning as if these are the different items which are the price of which is to be compared. Now there is one base year price and one is current year price. So now for this, in simple aggregative method, you add up all the values. The price of A in base year, price of A in current year. Likewise for all these items. And you just add up all these prices for the base year as well as for the current year. So now for in a method, what you do, you write sigma P0 into 100. So this is your simple price index method. Now opposite to this method, the second simple method is simple average of price relatives method. Simple average, as the name suggests, average comes first and then comes the relatives. Simple average of price relatives. So in this method, what you do, first for every item you find out the relative first for each individual item, and this is known as R. So your result is known as R for every. So we have different things for each individual item. So B for B, again you apply this method and find out the R for B. Then similarly for C, D, E, as many items are there, you calculate the same way. And later on you add up all these R's. And all these R's are called sigma R. Now number is number of items. Now it is aggregative of price relatives. Now this is aggregative. Now you have to find out the average for it. For average, you have to divide this sigma R by the number of items. If these are till D, you will divide it by 4 and you will write sigma R divided by N. And similarly, if these are 5, then you will, in the place of N, you will write 5. So this is the basic understanding of simple methods. Now we go on to the second compartmentalization of this method, these methods. These are weighted methods. So in your syllabus there are some other methods also in weighted methods of index number, but 3 are in your syllabus. These are Lespier's method, Pasch's method, and then Fisher's method. So these are the methods you have in your syllabus. Now first what you do, so here in these cases the weight would be the weight of a quantity, either of the base year quantity or of the current year quantity. Now we shall have, earlier in this simple method we had 2 columns given, P0 and P1, but in this case, as according to the method to be applied, you may have 3 to 4 columns given in the question as P0, P1 and Q0 and Q1. So now in Lespier's method, you first write the basic method. Basic method is your P0 is the denominator, P1 is the numerator. So here you write it to for this you give the weight. In Lespier's method, weight is given of base year quantity. So base year quantity is mentioned as Q0. So you multiply this method in numerator and denominator with Q0 and then multiply it by 100. So I give you one simple example here, A, B, C, D. So these are the price of this P0 and P1, Q0. So this is for Lespier's method. In this method, we multiply P0 with PQ and make another column P1, Q0, and similarly P0, Q0, and similarly we multiply this column with this for each individual item. For A differently, for B differently, then for C and D. And then you will get here this other column P1Q0. Supposing the value of it is 3, this is 4 and this is 5 in this case. Suppose quantity. So P0Q0 is 3 into 5, 15, and P1Q0 is 20. So after you have this thing for all the items, you sum up here, then it will be your sigma P0 Q0, and here it will be sigma P1 Q0, and then you apply the formula multiplying it by 100. It is simple calculation, you can do it, but the most calculation is not so difficult in index number. But what is the confusion of the method? This I am making you clear in this lecture, and if you are attentive enough, you won't ever forget. So this is for Lespier's method. Supposing this is now there is a foul method of remembering Lespier's method. L for last, L for Lespier's. So last means in somewhere in the past. Last year, last bench, last this thing. It means last is in the past. So this is the past year quantity of a commodity that is used as a weight in this method. Now P for present and P for current. Current is present. So and in this method you use current quantity as a weight. So in this the formula becomes P1 Q1 divided by P0 Q0 into 100, and here you can make 3 columns of this. These are given, and now you can make 2 columns by multiplying these for each individual items as we did earlier. Now it will be P0 Q1 and P1 Q1. Then again you apply the formula P1 Q1 P0 Q1 into 100, and you will get the answer. So this is the third method in this category of weighted index number methods. So this is Fisher's method. It is also known as Fisher's ideal index. So why ideal? Because in this method we use weights of both the years, not only of one year but of both the years. Now but then it will give you a very exaggerated value of the index number. So how we tackle with that? Now you will have 4 columns, 4 will be given, 4 you will derive by multiplying these. see how I do it. Now first I write the method here. What is the method? This is P1 Q0 upon P0 Q0 into P1 Q1 P0 Q1. Now we have multiplied it. It will be many times more. Now to just make it a real value of a sort so that it is not exaggerated, when we have multiplied it means we have doubled it, squared it. Multiplying the same by same means we have squared it. Now to balance it, we'll take a under root of this method, and after it this 100 will be outside the under root. So after calculating this, you multiply it with 100 and you will get the answer. I think now there is no confusion in remembering the formula, at least where to use P1, where to use Q1, Q0. I think it is clear to all of you. Good. So now we come to the third method, consumer price index. So in consumer price index there are two methods: aggregative expenditure method, aggregative expenditure method, and the other is family budget method. Now in aggregate expenditure method, under this simple aggregative method, for index numbers when we write the formula, we depict it by P01. This is price index. 0 here indicates the base year and 1 indicates the current year. So current year, this is the price, it comes to be price index. So formula, when I have been applying this formula, so LSP's method, before every method we will write P01 for any method, even here also P01, and then we go ahead with the formula. So now consumer price index, in case of consumer price index, in case of aggregative expenditure method, aggregative expenditure method is similar. It is just the same as Lespier's method, but to tell the students that is not the Lespier's method, it is the consumer price index that we are calculating. So what we do, we write P01 and here we write CP. Okay, it is being used for consumer price index. So we mention here it is similar to Lespier's method, but here because it is not only weighted method, it is consumer price index, so we mention here CP, and the rest of the method is the same as calculation and construction is the same. P1 Q0 and P0 Q0 into 100. So it is just a change of a name when the type is changed from from weighted aggregative to consumer price index. Now we go on to the family budget method. Family budget method is also similar to the method where we did a simple average of price relatives, but it is similar to simple average of price relatives, but only with the difference that we use here weight as well, and weight may be given, and in case weight is not given, it is taken to be P0 Q0. So for every item you consider the weight. For price relative you will find out like this, and for every item you will write P0 and Q0 as an as a weight. Just see how I just write it here. P, when we find out the relative, we write P1 Q0 for each individual item, then multiply it by 100. Now you multiply it by P0 and Q0 as well. This is the weight, and this is your relative, this is your weight. Then RW you find out for all different items in your basket of commodities for the consumer. Now when for A item, B item, C item, D item, you apply these formula individually, and when you reach here you sum up all these here and then take out the average, and this comes to be known as the consumer price index. Now here I would like to mention that consumer price index, it is not the same for all the consumers, because we have different classes in the society. In urban society there are industrial workers, and then there are white collared workers. For industrial workers their consumption pattern is different, and if we are using it for those industrial workers, we'll select the commodities that are generally used in their day-to-day life. And if we come to the next category of white collar laborers, or which are not doing the menial job in industries, then those who go to offices and all those people. So for those it is a different set of commodities they consume. Then depending on which category we are focusing, and for which category of the which class of the society we are calculating these index numbers. So likewise the selection of the commodities difference. Then the third category is of agricultural workers. In rural areas they generally reside, and their consumption pattern is entirely different from the two categories that we have discussed in consumer price index. So in that category we will have a different set of goods in their basket. The commodities which they consume in their day-to-day life would be different, but the method would be the same, either this or this. So likewise this is consumer price index. So the last category in this is wholesale price index. This is important to know about the rate of inflation. In today's lecture I won't confuse you with this, because it needs a full lecture on this, so that you really understand. Apart from these methods, all these three methods which we have discussed today have something in common. They are related in the way of their construction. Now I would like to recap our yesterday's lecture. Now I would like to ask the students about the difficulties in the construction of index numbers. So there are difficulties. There are difficulties of choice, which method to use, which commodities to be taken up, and which year to be used as a year of reference. And the year of reference should be a normal year in which there are no abnormal circumstances like drought or floods or like COVID of this year, it should be a normal year. So this year 2020 cannot ever be used as a base year because this is not a normal year. So in case of constructing normal years, we take up a year which is more or less a very smooth year in which there are not many ups and downs in production or any social unrest or any such untoward things happening. And likewise, it should not be very distant in the past. Supposing you are comparing 2020, so you cannot compare it to 1990 or 1980 because then the consumption patterns, circumstances all were entirely different. So it should be somewhere in the near past, not very distant in the past. And by making the comparison, I think now there you know about the characteristics of the index numbers. They help you compare the changes, they indicate the change in prices over a period of time or from place to place within a state, within a country, with one state to the other state and likewise. But we cannot compare different countries with this because their parameters are different, ours are different, but to some extent within a country it is a very good measure to indicate a change. So students, this consumer price index is based on the retail prices, and as the name of this method suggests, it is the wholesale price index. Wholesale price index. Though the method of calculating these is different, it refers to the general price level. It refers to general price level, जो सामान्य कीमत स्तर है हमारा. तो it tells us about the rate of inflation and calculated on weekly basis. Calculated on weekly basis, not over months or over years, as here we tell from time to time. So it, in this case, it may be years back, past year, current year. In this also, past year, current year, may be years apart. But in case of wholesale price index, the reference is just a week back. Current week is compared to the last week, and then the next week will be compared with this. Every year will be becoming past year for the every coming new week, and so this comparison is done on weekly basis. And the method used in this method is also Lespia's method and the weighted average method, aggregative method. So but this calculation is bit different because it is on the weekly basis. So we'll discuss this method in full detail later on in our next lesson, not today, but at least I think you are today totally clear about all these aspects of different categories of construction of it. Now, two more important things to remember about wholesale price index is that it is in India, it is calculated for 676 commodities which are divided into three categories. Primary sector as crop and all, fish and all, which whatever comes in the primary sector, that comes here. Then second, the electricity, power sector, lubricants, energy, it comes in the second, and in the third parts come the manufacturing. So all these are commodities. This is agriculture or primary sector, then energy, you can say it energy sector comprising of electricity, lubricants and power, and then is the third one is manufacturing sector. In manufacturing, whatever comes out of the from industrial region, as sugar is manufactured, then cloth is manufactured, automobiles are manufactured, whatever is manufactured comes in the third category. So you must have noticed that these all are the commodities, not the services. So services are not taken up in wholesale price index. Now in India we call it the wholesale price index, but in many countries, in United States, it is known as production price index. So name is bit different, thing is the same. The magnitude of these two is different. The wholesale price index is more comprehensive. It is based on selected basket of the consumers, but it takes number of items taken in these are much more. The magnitude is different, but the direction, the change which is indicated or the pattern, that is, it tells us about how the prices are changing. Pattern is almost the same. Pattern is the same, but the magnitude is different. So today this is enough, and but you must remember this is quite an interesting lesson, easier to calculate and easier to remember, very nicely correlated and important from examination point of view. Theory is very important, and sometimes 6 marks question is asked from a theory part of it, and sometimes maybe of 2-3 marks theory is there. It is easier to remember, easier to calculate, but always there in exam. So I think you will do justice with the with this lesson, and I'll give you 3 more days. For one day we will be discussing it threadbare, the wholesale price index, and the rest of the things will be for practicing all these different methods in class. And today's lecture, panoramic view of the index numbers. Now in future coming 3 days we'll be calculating it, 2 to 3 questions of every question. You will do it at home also and in class as well, and then I think there won't be any difficulty in this chapter with the students. So thank you so much. God bless you all.